There are over 300 national park sites in America, encompassing an incredible diversity of natural and historical wonders. 3 parks in particular have come to symbolize the grandeur and majesty of our national park system. Come discover the sights and sounds of the crown jewels of America's national parks: Grand Canyon, Yellowstone, and Yosemite. In the northwestern corner of Wyoming lies Yellowstone National Park, the oldest, largest, and most popular park in the country. We're in the heart of the Rockies here, a region that abounds with the beauties of nature and great numbers of wildlife. It is a land of pine-clad mountains and broad, grassy valleys. The countryside is laced with lakes and streams of exquisite beauty. Through the centuries, the rivers have carved their way along these rocky slopes, splashing from stone to stone, tumbling over cliffs, forming cascades and waterfalls in an astonishing abundance and variety. Although you see moose occasionally, elk are far more common, for thousands live in the park. Their stately bearing and great antlers make the bull elk one of the handsomest animals in America. Yellowstone is the home to a wide variety of birds and waterfowl. The elegant trumpeter swan, once considered rare, is making a comeback here and in other areas. Yellowstone is famous for its bears, but no matter how friendly they may seem, it is wise to remember that they're both wild and dangerous and should be observed from a safe distance. Yellowstone Lake, the largest in the park, is popular for boating and fishing, and its northwestern shore is a recreational paradise. Years ago, anglers stood shoulder to shoulder on the world-famous fishing bridge. However, because this is a prime spawning area for the park's wild trout, the practice was stopped. The fishing cone at West Thumb is a boiling hot spring completely surrounded by the chilly waters of Yellowstone Lake. Legend has it that Indians cooked their trout in it. Although West Thumb has only a limited amount of geyser activity, these deep funnel-shaped pools abound. Their scalding water is often a transparent emerald or turquoise color. In several places in the park, hot pools have filled with thick, gooey mud. These are the famous paint pots. Escaping gases cause them to bubble and spit like a pan of pudding on the kitchen stove. Old Faithful, the most famous geyser in the world and one of our country's great natural wonders. It is unique in the regularity of its eruptions and the symmetrical beauty of its enormous plume. Old Faithful is but one of many geysers and springs grouped in a stony, treeless area known as a basin. The Park Service provides boardwalks and trails to all points of interest. You can get something of the feel of the park on a stroll through the basin, sniffing the faint odor of sulfur and feeling the warm vapor blow against your cheek. Runoff from all of these hydrothermal features drains into the appropriately named Firehole River. Each year, Excelsior Geyser alone pours an incredible 5 million gallons of scalding water into the river. Morning Glory is probably the best-known pool in the park, and its splendid symmetry and color truly reflect the beauty of the flower it's named for. Bluebell Pool offers a different shape and shade of blue. The depth, combined with the colors of algae and the blue sky, produce the varying shades of colors found in most pools and springs. There is no limit to the variety of the pools and geysers. No two are alike, and it all has been produced by volcanic activity over a period of tens of thousands of years. Some, like Old Faithful, throw great volumes of water high into the air in eruptions that last for several minutes and occur frequently. Others may squirt up only a few feet, but remain in almost constant eruption. The largest geyser in the world, Steamboat in the Norris Basin, can go years without a major eruption. But when it does, it explodes to a height of nearly 400 feet, 3 times that of Old Faithful. Predicting geyser eruptions is a complex process, and for many it is still just educated guesswork. Many factors affect when an eruption occurs, including rainfall, temperature, and especially the size and duration of preceding eruptions. Riverside Geyser has an unusual personality and setting, and is second only to Old Faithful in popularity. Its cone is built up at the very edge of the Firehole River. It shoots a 75-foot plume of water at an angle out over the river, and is one of the most regular geysers in Yellowstone, erupting every 7 hours. Continuing around the park on the Loop Road brings you to places like Obsidian Cliffs, where 200-foot-high walls were named Mountain of Glass by an early frontiersman. Actually, it's a kind of volcanic rhyolite. Just outside of Mammoth Hot Springs, the road passes through Golden Gate, a narrow notch in the yellow-tinted cliffs. There's a pretty cascade here. Mammoth Hot Springs is the headquarters of the park, as well as one of the centers of visitor activity. Lodgings, restaurants, and tourist facilities are found here. The terraces of the hot springs at Mammoth are delicately made formations, fluted and scalloped as if by a master sculptor. Yet they're all natural. As the hot water cools, it deposits a form of limestone called travertine, leaving a sprawling profusion of steps and balconies. The process continues steadily and slowly, even engulfing trees as it creeps onward. The coloring comes from both bacteria and algae in the hot water. The drive around the park continues with splendid scenic vistas at every turn. The grizzly bear is frequently seen here in the Mount Washburn area. The giant Yellowstone River, fed by springs and melting snows, gathers momentum as it rushes through its rocky gorge and races under Chittenden Bridge. The crystal-clear water roars over the upper falls in a drop of more than 100 feet. An overlook at the brink finds visitors unconsciously gripping the rail with both hands as they watch the torrent surge past. The roar of the cataract can be heard from afar, and its mists fill the canyon. This great yellow gash in the Earth's surface is 24 miles long and from 800 to 1,200 feet deep. The black rock framing the upper falls contrasts sharply with the highly colored canyon that forms the setting of the lower falls. The rainbow in the mist at the base of the falls truly gilds the lily. This magnificent 330-foot waterfall, set in its canyon of yellow stone, is one of the grandest sights in America. The falls can be viewed from many spots along both sides of the canyon, and they're unfailingly impressive. Looking at this scene, it is easy to understand why many visitors find it the most glorious view in the park. Here at Yellowstone National Park, nature has been bountiful beyond measure, and each visitor leaves with a quiet resolve that its beauty stays preserved and should remain unharmed forever. This glorious valley, its lofty granite walls, sparkling waterfalls, and splendid stands of trees, this valley is the jewel of the Sierras and the heart of Yosemite National Park. Bridal Veil Falls is the most graceful in the park. It plunges more than 600 feet down from its symmetrical hanging valley, a slender strand of silver against the gray granite wall. During the drier summer months, it takes on a lacy, veil-like appearance for which it was named, but it's a major scenic attraction at all seasons. In spring and early summer, when Sierra snows are melting, Yosemite is a water wonderland. You are seldom far from the sight or sound of rushing water. It can range from a small stream splashing gaily over glistening boulders to the earth-shaking roar of tons of water at the foot of a major fall. For dramatic beauty and power, nothing in the park can surpass Yosemite Falls. It is made up of two very large falls and an intermediate cascade, dropping a total distance of nearly half a mile to the valley floor. It is the second highest falls on Earth, equal in height to 15 Niagaras. The thunder of its roaring water can be heard throughout the valley. The vibrations can be felt a mile away, as its water, stored in ice and snow during the winter, is released. This is surely nature's handiwork at its most majestic. El Capitan, one of the largest exposed pieces of granite on Earth, was shaped by an enormous glacier, as was the entire valley 1 to 2 million years ago. There is an architectural quality about much of the valley, where the rock walls, the soaring towers and domes, all seem to have been imitated by man in his own less heroic structures. Since 1931, scientists have agreed on the manner in which Earth-shaping forces created Yosemite Valley. Studies revealed that Ice Age glaciers had been at work here, and eventually the theory of carving by ice was accepted. Even Glacier Point was buried under 700 feet of ice, although the tops of some peaks like El Capitan and Half Dome remained clear. During the last 20,000 years, only small changes have occurred in the valley. If you stand at the western end of the valley near the Wawona Tunnel, your view of the valley will readily show you how these glaciers carved the landscape. The sheer vertical rock walls on both sides have in places been polished by the glaciers to the point that they glisten in the sun. These, together with a flat floor, give the present valley a U-shaped cross-section. Glacial moraines are still visible in parts of the valley. Near Mirror Lake, the ground is strewn with the boulders dropped there when the ice receded. Yosemite's varied habitats are home to wildlife of all kinds. Deer and coyote are common in the valley, while marmots and black bear are more likely seen in the high country. For uncounted generations, Indians lived here. In 1833, fur trappers reached the rim and, as they continued westward, discovered the groves of giant sequoias. The Mariposa Grove of giant sequoias contains the forest monarchs that grow here and in a few other scattered locations on the western slopes of the Sierra Nevada. They are not found in any other place on Earth. The sequoia is the largest tree on Earth, and some of the 3,000-year-old giants here weigh as much as 2 million pounds. There has been no larger living thing since the world began. The sequoia's greatest foe is its own weight. It can literally get out of balance and topple over. This condition brought down the fallen giant, which, though lying prostrate, still has a look of indestructibility. A quiet stroll among these giants is an inspiring experience. Their great trunks rise from the forest floor like columns of a vast temple, whose vaulted roof is formed by the lowest branches. Here and there a shaft of sunlight comes down from above, piercing the shadowless light of the grove. The steps of the visitor slows. Nature shows us her majesty, and we can only stand in wonder. The Tuolumne Grove on the western edge of the park contains a number of giant sequoias, as well as fine specimens of ponderosa pine and other conifers. There are tourist facilities and campgrounds in several sections of the park, but the valley is the center of activity. Yosemite Village is also the location of park headquarters and the visitor center. Yosemite is an outdoorsman's paradise. The park's vast backcountry features endless opportunities for hiking, backpacking, and getting into the real wilderness. Camping out in Yosemite has become so popular that reservations are required during the summer. Built in 1879, only the Yosemite Chapel remains to mark the site where in earlier years the shops and other buildings of the old village lined a street south of the valley wall. One of the most popular trail trips in the park is that to Vernal and Nevada Falls, which starts at Happy Isles. Much of the route follows the tumbling Merced River, which drops dramatically in a single turbulent stretch of falls and cascades. It's uphill going on the way, but easy coming down. First in view is 300-foot Vernal Falls, a smooth, symmetrical sheet of falling water 80 feet broad, with a fine column of mist filling its verdant canyon. The trail continues on to Nevada Falls, twice as high as Vernal and utterly different in appearance. Altogether, the Merced River drops about 2,000 feet in less than 2 miles. Here the river bursts down the face of a rugged cliff, splashing from one outcropping to another and taking on a twisted, ragged look. These falls are in good flow all year round, and the hike is always worthwhile. If any single peak in Yosemite can cause you to catch your breath in awe, surely it is Half Dome. But there is beauty in such abundance as to be all but overwhelming. Nature has spread her wonders with a lavish hand. Man is dwarfed by the giant sequoias whose very presence led a sense of something very close to eternity. He is dwarfed by the great rock walls that were once crushed and carved by immense fields of ice, now beyond our comprehension. He is dwarfed by the mighty waterfalls that flow and roar with endless continuity. When all of these things are looked upon from the chaos of our time, they seem ageless and serene. And when, late in the day, with the sun just touching the peaks and the valley filling with shadows, there may be a time for reflection. This splendid setting, wrought on so heroic a scale, must be preserved for the enjoyment of future generations. When the worries and pressures of a modern world seem to crowd in upon us, this beautiful valley must always be here, a refreshment for man's spirit. Sunrise brings the dawn of a new day over the Grand Canyon, one of our nation's premier national parks, and with it, the promise of adventure. Located in northern Arizona, people come from all areas of the world to visit and marvel at its wonders, eager to see one of nature's most majestic spectacles. It truly dwarfs the tiny humans that come to gaze into it. Grand Canyon is by far the largest and most complex chasm on the face of the earth. This magnificent view is as breathtaking an introduction to the canyon that you could possibly find. No matter where you catch your first glimpse, the Grand Canyon of the Colorado River is overwhelming. There are shapes and colors, depths and distances. The entire rainbow is here, locked in stone and spread out in an awesome panorama that no other landscape in the world can rival. This vast chasm stretches over 200 miles from east to west. It's 9 miles across from the south rim in the foreground to the far distant north rim. Its depth? Well, from our viewpoint down to the level of the river, it's more than a mile. There is an infinite variety of form among the rocks. Towers and cliffs, temples and battleships, almost anything that fancy can suggest. There are many overlooks and hiking trails around the rim, each offering its own individual views of the canyon. The shapes and colors change as you move about. Children in particular are always delighted with the faces and figures to be found in the rocks. Animals from the zoo, characters from storybooks. Many familiar friends may come to mind, such as the duck on a rock. And the colors are equally varied, from the ivory of the rocks at your feet, through red and orange and brown, down to the black of the deepest and oldest rocks at the bottom of the gorge. Over all are the blue and purple shadows, growing, merging, fading, all slowly shifting as the sun moves across the sky in the course of the day. A brief summer thunderstorm can plunge the entire canyon into darkness, altering its mood and heightening its mystery. Both form and color are in constant change here, never the same from one minute to the next. Even in late spring and early fall, a sudden chilling storm can bring snow and ice, briefly touching the trees with winter dress, while temperatures deep down in the canyon remain balmy all winter long. In the walls of the inner gorge, the ancient rock even now is slowly giving way, grain by tiny grain, to the forces of erosion. The carving of the canyon is still going on. The river is still digging deeper and deeper, scraping away at the rocky walls, hollowing out, undermining, always at work. Wherever you see the white water of the rapids, the river is the most turbulent, and the greatest erosion is occurring. However, thousands of years must pass before the canyon would be noticeably widened or deepened. As we stroll along the rim, we sometimes forget that its calm and quiet look is owing to the distance. But all these terraces, every butte and cliff, were carved by wind and water, and the river is never at rest. Perhaps the most exciting adventure found in the Grand Canyon is the mule trip down into its depths. There are 1- and 2-day trips, the longer of which goes the entire 11 miles to Phantom Ranch. As the riders thread their way down the Bright Angel Trail, groups of sightseers gather to see them off. Hiking into the canyon is also popular, but it can be very strenuous. The trail drops by a series of zigzags or switchbacks, which reduce the steep descent to an easier grade. The animals are good-natured and sure-footed, and many a rider discovers an unexpected affection for his patient mount. It's a long trip down, often hot and dusty. The guides call a halt from time to time to rest the mules and to give the riders a chance to dismount and stretch their legs. Here at the bottom, you can almost feel the mighty forces of erosion at work. When you look up at those great walls towering above you and hear the roar of the rapids close at hand, then the Grand Canyon is grand indeed. The mule train crosses the river over the Kaibab Bridge, which arches from one wall to the other, suspended by sturdy steel cables anchored in the rock. Near the bridge is the campsite of Major John Wesley Powell and his party, who in 1869 made a heroic boat trip through the canyon. The Grand Canyon National Park was created in 1919. Nearby lies Phantom Ranch, the goal of our canyon trip. Here in a cool grove of cottonwood trees, the tired riders find a traveler's paradise. Showers, rustic cabins, and a cheerful dining room where ranch-style meals are served. The next morning, the trip out covers a different route, and we see new parts of the canyon at close range. The mule train climbs up the shorter and steeper Kaibab Trail, a spectacular half-day ascent to Yaqui Point. The last few miles, which literally climbs up the face of a gigantic cliff, are perhaps the most exciting of the entire mule trip. A glance over your shoulder brings to mind that only a few short hours ago you were relaxing in a happy oasis far below. From this time on, you see into the canyon with new eyes. It never looks quite the same after you've traveled down into it. Up here at the top, you're far removed from that other world along the river. Most visitors want to learn about the canyon, and the best way is to stop at the visitor center near the village and the museum at Yavapai Point. They both have interesting exhibits, and Park Service naturalists can answer your questions. A variety of accommodations is available in and near the village, including the El Tovar, one of the most famous resort hotels in America. Trails and scenic viewpoints are found near the village, which is composed of a complex of cottages, shops, and studios. Hopi House is a replica of the type of terraced stone dwellings built by the Hopi Indians, whose reservation lies east of the park. The arts and crafts of all Indian tribes and pueblos of the Southwest are offered for sale here. Taking pictures at the canyon is always great fun, any season of the year, any time of the day. Actually, pleasing photos can be made here under almost any conditions, and you'll find inspiration everywhere. For sensational photos, you may wish to take an air tour of the canyon, which is available from a nearby airport. To view the canyon from a great height is an experience never to be forgotten. Moving farther east, the canyon grows shallower, and the river is in sight more often. Near the east entrance is the watchtower. No other place in the park can give you a more splendid view of the canyon as geologists see it. It is late in the afternoon, toward the close of day, that the Grand Canyon takes on its most magnificent coloring. The lowering sun lengthens shadows and embellishes the rocks as at no other time of the day. Even the trees along the rim, some gnarled and bent by decades of wind and storms, take on a golden glow. When sundown is still an hour away, parts of the canyon fill with shadow, and night has already come to the western slopes of the gorge. And so the day comes to a close. The history of the canyon stretches from a distant past through eons of time up to this very day. No one can know more than a fraction of that past. We have had but a glimpse of it, interesting and exciting as it was, but only a moment in the eternal story of the Grand Canyon.